So you've decided on a Huawei P20 as your next phone, but which model should you get? The standard P20 is smaller and a good bit cheaper than the P20 Pro, but you'll miss out on one or two major features as well as a few more subtle differences. So let's take a look as we go head to head with the Huawei P20 versus P20 Pro. The size difference between P20 and P20 Pro actually isn't that noticeable, even with the two phones side by side. The 5.8-inch P20 is still relatively large in the grand scheme of smartphones, and so the small bump up to the 6.1-inch P20 Pro doesn't feel all that significant. Reaching the top of the screen on either of these is going to be a challenge for many people. The displays themselves use different technology, even if the resolution is the same at Full HD. The P20 has an LCD screen, an RGBW panel which has an extra white pixel in addition to red, green and blue for extra brightness. And the P20 Pro uses AMOLED. Despite the technical differences though, it's tough to tell these screens apart in everyday use. The only thing I've really noticed is that the P20 Pro has a slight edge in daylight visibility. That's about it though. Aside from size, there's a small but important physical difference in the build of the standard P20. Unlike the Pro, where the glass back panel is curved right into the metal of the body, there's an unsightly plastic seam in the standard model, which instead uses 2.5D glass with a tapered edge. It's less noticeable in the darker models, but stands out clearly in some of the brighter colours. Speaking of colours, you get a different selection of hues depending on whether you go P20 or P20 Pro, the biggest difference being the extra fancy iridescent colour shifting option for each of these phones. On the P20 Pro, the premium colour is the Twilight version, which starts as purple up top with a gentle gradient to a blue-green down below. On the regular P20 you get pink gold, which is more of a pinkish pearl kind of colour, with a rainbow effect as you tilt it through the light. Both are striking, and the choice here mostly comes down to personal taste. One major table stakes feature you don't get in the standard P20 is water resistance. The smaller phone unfortunately is only rated IP53 for splash resistance, so it'll be okay if you spill a drink over it, but all bets are off if it gets dunked in the toilet. The P20 Pro with its IP67 rating for water and dust resistance is more resilient. On the inside, both phones have 128 gigs of storage and are based on the same Kirin 970 platform, along with Huawei's homemade AI hardware, the Neural Processing Unit, so core performance is about the same. The only real difference here is the jump up to 6 gigs of RAM in the P20 Pro, whereas the standard P20 only has 4 gigs. That's still fine for a speedy Android experience, but you may notice apps reloading more frequently on the smaller P20. In my use it's been fine, but it's something you may want to consider if you're a heavy multitasker. The extra physical space inside the P20 Pro also allows for a larger battery than the standard model, though the smaller P20 has ample longevity even with its 3400 mAh cell. I don't know whether you call it a 2-day phone, but on an average day I wasn't reaching for the charger before bedtime. And although the P20 Pro in my experience hasn't quite matched the exceptional battery life of the Mate 10 Pro, it's still one of the longest lasting Android phones out there, with its extra large 4000 mAh cell, so that's another small advantage of the Pro. When it comes to cameras, both phones share the same 24-megapixel front camera with face unlock capabilities, which works well enough in most conditions, but can struggle in lower light. Around the back though, there are two totally different camera configurations. The P20 has dual cameras. There's a new 12-megapixel main sensor with 1.55 micron pixels, larger than the Galaxy S9 though without optical stabilization and behind an f1.8 lens. And that's paired with what appears to be the same 20-megapixel monochrome camera used in the Mate 10 with an f1.6 lens which fills in fine detail. The P20 Pro has the same monochrome camera, but its main camera has a massive 40-megapixel sensor, which can use pixel binning to shoot 10-megapixel photos with an equivalent pixel size of 2 microns, and that gives it a huge advantage in low light. On top of that, the P20 Pro boasts a 3x telephoto camera. That's something you won't find in any other phone right now, including the smaller P20. In bright daylight, it's really hard to tell the difference between shots in the P20 and P20 Pro. Both look great and have basically the same loadout of AI features in the camera app, which can automatically tweak the camera settings depending on what you're shooting. In low light is where you'll see the biggest difference between these two phones, as the P20 Pro captures sharper, brighter night shots. Both phones have Huawei's excellent new handheld long exposure mode, which uses AI magic to counter hand motion and produces stunning low light captures over 4 or 5 seconds. Night mode is pretty great on the standard P20, but it really comes into its own on the Pro. This camera has given me the best night shots I've taken on any phone, and that includes the Galaxy S9 and the Pixel 2. And then there's the price difference. In the UK, the P20 starts at £599 with a £200 jump up to the Pro at $799. That's a significant chunk of cash and speaks to the full flagship experience you're getting on the Pro. For me, there's really no question. The extra money for the Pro is absolutely worth it, and that mainly comes down to battery life, camera performance, and water resistance. And if you don't care about those things, then hey, the standard P20 is still a great phone for the money. That's it for now, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to Android Central here on YouTube for all our future coverage.